Well, after getting some recommendations, I figured I would give BlackBerry a look. You know what I mean? This is the new film from Matt Johnson. It is written by Johnson and Matthew Miller. Okay. The film is produced by Fraser Ash, Niv Finchman, Kevin Christ, Matthew Miller, executive produced by Noah Siegel, Nick Spicer, Aram Texakian, Robert Upchurch, Jay McCarroll, Adrian Love, Maxim Kutry, Nate Bollerton, associate produced by Matt Grayson, Kurt Lube, and Jared Rabb. Line production from Kirsty Neville. Jay McCarroll handles the music, Jared Rabb cinematography, while Kurt Lobb was on editing duties. Pam Dixon took care of the casting. Adam Belanga was production design. Kerry Noonan is art direction. Set decoration, we have Lucy Larkin with Hannah Pooley on costume design. Hair, makeup, all of that goodness. We got Haley Roseland Barnes, Natalie Dale, Tanya Bischoff, Nigel James White, Ashley Vieira, Dylan Twig, Sweeney, Lanny Starr, Nicole Sue, Thea Samuels, Melissa Gibson, Lindsay Burns, and Philippe Bertrand Holden. Now, our cast, we have got Jay Bushnell as Mike. Hold a second. Let's see if we got a better listing. Yes, Jay Bushnell as Mike Lazaridis. His best friend and co-founder of RIM is Doug Freegan, played by Matt Johnson. We have then got Jim Balsillie, played by Glenn Howerton. We've got Charles Purdy, played by Michael Ironside, Paul Stanos, played by Rich Suma, Rick Brooke, played by Martin Donovan, Dara Frankel, played by Michelle Garou, Richie Chung, played by Song Won Chu, Gary Betterman, played by Mark Critch, John Woodman, played by Saul Rubinik, Carl Yankowski, played by Carrie Yules, Alan is played by Ben Petrie. So yeah, that's a big chunk of the cast, I would say. Like, yeah, all the different people that we really interact with. Now, it's a story about a company that toppled global rights before succumbing to the ruthless competitive forces of Silicon Valley. This is not a conventional tale of modern business failure by fraud and greed. The rise and fall of BlackBerry reveals the dangerous speed at which innovators race along the information superhighway. I don't know about that, right? To say this isn't a story about fraud and greed, because it is, right? It most definitely is. And I think that's one of the crazy things about BlackBerry, right? It's the fact that we have these people, like no one's really that likable, right? Even though you might watch it and think that certain people would be likable. Like, I think the assumption would be that Mike and Doug would be very likable. They're not, right? They're not. And it's kind of crazy because um it's like you I think we're shown Jim as being I think what's the word? Can't think of the word, but he's just a bit of an ass, right? He's like very boastful, he's very forceful, right? And he will try and play you off yourself, right? To get what he wants. But on the flip, Doug kind of comes off as that as well, right? Everyone's bullying Mike at the beginning to get him to do what they want, right? Doug being his best friend isn't necessarily acting like a friend from what we see, you know? Because I think this is the big thing as well. It's based on a book, right? This whole story is based on a book. Um, Losing the Signal, the untold story behind the extraordinary rise and spectacular fall of BlackBerry by Jacquie McNish and Sean Silcoff. So it's based on that, but it's a fictionalized telling of this story. So that's a big thing. It's fictionalized. It's not necessarily exactly what went down. I mean, none of these things ever are, right? Now, you have to give it the fact that it's actually telling you that, yeah, they're not really following everything, which makes sense because just the way everything goes down is crazy. It's crazy, you know, it's insane. There's a bit at the very beginning, right? When Jim is sacked, we see him in the office at night. We see him in the office at no one else there. And you're just like, no company would sack you and then let you be the person to close the building, right? No, that's not happening. Yeah, and if they don't make you go home there and then, right? They're at least, you know, not letting you be in there on your own. You know, fear that you'll wreck the place, fear that you'll steal. Everyone's paranoid. So that scene was kind of not. It was just like, no, he's not going to be left on these J's in that motherfucking building. What are we saying? What are we doing? No, 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 people. Right? So there is that. But yeah, watching this, I mean, I remember I had a BlackBerry for a minute because it was the only phone where I was kind of told you could change the font size. Now you could change the font size on a message you were sending, but not on a message you were fucking receiving, right? On nothing else you were able to make big. So it was a God, it was a point. So I got rid of that phone as quick. Oh, it was just frustrating. The screen was tiny. Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a real nightmare. And Apple, boy, you got to say they changed the game on that shit. And it really did remind me of a bit like the music industry when you look at places like HMV, Tower Records, and all of that. You know, when online, yeah, people were buying online, they didn't really change their models, right? A similar thing to, um, video stores, right? When streaming came around, didn't really change. Yeah, so everything went bust. And that's what it was with BlackBerry. They didn't change. They thought they were great. They thought they had the business market, you know? Um, and seeing that kind of head in the ground mentality, right? You could see how they were going to fall apart, which was like, oh shit, right? You could really see how they were going to fall apart. And it was kind of bonkers, just the lack of loyalty and integrity that everyone had, everyone, right? I get movie Mondays, right? As a notion, I get that. But you also have to be ready to go to the mattresses, as it were, right? When you've got something big on and right, that this could make the company, or, you're just needed. You don't be like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. No, you would help. But these people didn't really have that attitude. So that's crazy. Now, the acting was great. I will say the acting was really good for the most part. Right? There's certain things which, I think could have maybe been a little tighter. Some of the dialogue was good. Some was a bit bonkers. Right? There's a line. I'm from Waterloo, where the vampires live. It was just like, that's not intimidating. Right? That's not. I really want to know if that was actually said, because that's not an intimidating, what I mean, threat to throw out there. Like, what are you thinking, man? What are you think? It's like being like, yo, you want to fuck with me? I'll come around your house and rip your Bobby's head off. It's just like, what the fuck are you saying, motherfucker? What are you saying? You know? So yeah, that was decent, but it was a bit. It hit. Didn't all hit. Right, when you think of stuff like Wall of Wall Street, that was just from beginning to end. That was tight as a motherfucker. This one, so yeah, it had its moments though. It definitely had its moments. I did think some of the camera work got a bit, what I mean? There was a lot of like real close up on people, and it was just a bit like, yo, can we pull back? Can we pull back? I don't need to be this close to this motherfucker, you know? There was some of that, but for the most part, it shot well. It shot well, as I say, good performances. I say that Matt Lazaridis, Jay Bechamel. Now, Jay Bechamel was good. Don't get me wrong. But there were times when it's just like, Mike is just kind of muffling, right? So instead of really imbuing the scene with a certain, it's just more, oh, if I muffle, that comes across as being kind of maybe meek or so, So there was that. But for the most part, Jay did a good job with Mike. Glenn Howerton was just fantastic as Jim, right? A complete contrast to Dennis. You know what I mean? Which was yeah, impressive. Impressive. I think story-wise, it's an interesting one, right? Because we do get these time jumps, sometimes a year, sometimes it was longer, you know, which is fine. But like, there's a few things because the aging, no one really looked that much older. No one really looked that much older. They just basically changed Mike's hair style and what he wore. But yeah, no one really looked any older, which was kind of odd. That was kind of an odd one. And there does seem to be these gaps, right? So wait, why are we doing this? And how are we doing that kind of thing from where we last left them? So yeah, for me, it's an interesting film. Definitely an interesting film to see what exactly went down, even though, right? Did it go down like this? Really? You know what I mean? Knowing that it's a fictionalized telling and it's loosely based on this book. Did this really go down like that? Right. So there's some things like that, but yeah, it wasn't bad. I'd say it wasn't as tight as Tetris, and definitely wasn't for me as hard hitting as Wall of Wall Street. But if you enjoy those films, I think you would enjoy BlackBerry. You know, like it doesn't really hold to Jobs. That was really good, but it's a cousin of those films, right? It's a family member. So it's definitely not a terrible film. Definitely not. It's worth a watch if you're interested in BlackBerry, what went down, just that whole time period. Because they do nail that, right? The look and the feel was handled very well. Because yeah, I think they did a fantastic job with the aesthetics of the film. Yeah, the aesthetics of the film. I'm curious to know if everyone really looked like these fictionalized versions of themselves. I feel Mike. mm, I don't know, because I've only seen like pictures of him now, so definitely nowhere near. But yeah, how close was that? That'd be interesting, right? Did Doug really come to work with a headband on and a tank top and shorts all the time? Like, even when he wore the suit, right? What the fuck was that? That was bonkers. So those kind of things would be interesting, how close all of that stuff was. But yeah, as I said, look, if you like these kind of biopic films, as I say, we got Jobs, we got Wolf of Wall Street, we've got Tetris. If you like all of these things, then I think you'll find BlackBerry interesting. If you're interested in that time period and what happened to the company, yeah, you'll find it interesting. It's an odd one how they leave it all, right? Because Mike and Doug are friends, right? They went and did a company together after, all of this in 2013. So I think, yeah, it did leave things in a bit of an odd way, right? With some certain assumptions but you know, it is what it is. It's filmmaking, you know what I mean? But yeah, BlackBerry, it's out on all VODs. So if you feel it, you can watch it. I think it's on Paramount Plus in the States if you've got that subscription. It's on Now TV in the UK if you've got that, or you can just rent and buy it from anywhere else. Okay, so that is BlackBerry.